I'm going to start to address the eggs and egg production. The organic industry is booming. And if you look at it one way, these are the best of times for the industry. These products can barely keep up with the demand. Prices for the products are high, profits are rolling in, and local producers are expanding. For those of us concerned with GMOs, this is great news. Organic means that the food does not contain GMOs. But here's what I'm going to caution you on. When it comes to organic eggs, I'm going to give you a big caution. And for the moment, let's only focus on the industry because I don't want to talk about local, but I will in just a minute. And some of what I'm about to share with you is also relevant to the meat industry. To most of us, when we hear the word organic eggs, we have a picture of chickens outside running around, collecting dust, doing their chickenness, and having a good time. They're collecting vitamin D and soaking up the sunshine. But with this organic industry growing, one must look very closely at who owns the organic industry. And out in the room out there, we have a whole wall of who owns the organic industry. We have watchdogs and we have whistleblowers in the industry. And the one that we all turn to the most is Cornucopia. Cornucopia is a Wisconsin-based farm policy research group. And last fall, they took 14 of these industries to task. They looked at 9 different states, and they found that they were in violation of the organic industry. They have filed a formal legal complaint against all 14 of the industries that they looked at. These are operations that are producing milk, meat, and eggs, and they're all being marketed, allegedly, illegally as organic. What they found is not different than feedlots of non-organic. These are facilities where animals are raised. These are not farms. Organic egg producers are required to follow standards in local labeling. In terms of human treatment, they're supposed to have access to outdoors. They're supposed to be cage-free. These terms are what we associate when we think of healthy animals. But for example, the American Human Certified should not be confused with the Animal Welfare Approved, which is completely allows animals to be caged. To make things worse, there's little enforcing of these rules, as Eric just talked about. These facilities can be nothing more than massive buildings, which guess how much they can hold? Up to 1 million chickens per building. Imagine the stink. The chickens are given access by a small door or sometimes a porch that will hold less than 1% of all those animals. This is called cage-free. This is also called free range. For chicken raised under this description of cage-free or free range, the numbers allowed per facility are maxed at 1 million per facility. Can you imagine? Free range, that means that each bird minimally gets 16 inches of space. That's just a few more inches than this piece of paper. Pastured raised is a whole nother description. It's at the other end of the spectrum. Some pasture-raised hens are given over 100 times of what I've just spoke about. Some of these facilities that Cornucopia looked into last fall were organic meat and dairy producers. They also had cows living in them. The cows never saw daylight, they lived on concrete, and they lived with between 5,000 and 10,000 animals, all under the name of organic. How many of you are familiar with CAFOS? It stands for Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations. So this is what we have, CAFOS, all masquerading as organic. These practices are undercutting our farmers, our local farmers to be exact, people like the Allen Farm, Mermaid Farm, or Gray Barn. So let's jump back to the Vineyard. I looked through the farm labels of those 14 facilities that were investigated by Cornucopia, and sure enough, we sell those products right here on Martha's Vineyard. A brand that you see on the Vineyard commonly is Smart Chicken. Cornucopia also publishes a scorecard, a grading system for eggs. Here it rates both Pete and Jerry's and Organic Valley as 3. They go as high as 5. 3 means very good, organic, complying with minimum USDA standards. These brands with a 3 egg rating are very good choices. Eggs from brands in this category either come from family-scale farms that provide outdoor runs for their chickens, or from large-scale farms where there is meaningful outdoor space that is either currently granted or under construction. Land O'Lakes, Organic Acres, and Altadena all got a rating of 1 egg. 1 egg ratings are generally produced on industrial scale egg operations that grant no meaningful outdoor access. So now we covered CAFOS and organic, but let's look at antibiotic use. Because specifically, antibiotics are not supposed to be used under the organic code. Yet there's a loophole. The standards do not apply until the 2nd day of life. So chicks who are destined for organic farms, the industry allows them to be inoculated with doses of antibiotics. So what's wrong with this practice? Well, for one, we believe that we're getting chickens that don't have either eggs or chickens that don't have any organic or have any antibiotics in them. And for 2, the practice could promote the spread of antibiotic-resistant superbugs. Now this practice of injecting antibiotics into animals has been used for decades. It's for mass-produced, fast-growing animals. And out in the other room, there are several pictures in the last 30 years of the difference of the size of animals that are growing at different time periods just by the use of antibiotics. So I gave you a quick overview of the organic chicken industry, and I threw in a bit about the chicken industry. You do not want to hear about the chicken industry that's not organic. Since 1996, farmers in animal agriculture, including poultry, have fed genetically modified organisms, corn and soybean, to their flocks and herds, all under the U.S. government's oversight. Since more than 80% of our corn and soybeans grown in the U.S. are raised from genetically modified seed, almost all the corn and all the soybean used in conventional livestock poultry production is GMO. So how does that translate? If you want to avoid GMOs, only eat organically. But I assure you that if you're only eating organically, you are eating animals that are not living a very happy life. So let's look at that term pastured, because as far as I know, pastured chickens are living on pasture. As far as I know, cows living on pasture are living on pasture. I haven't heard of any whistleblowers claiming otherwise. On the Vineyard, you're much more likely to find animals that are pastured. But here's the question. Are they being fed organic grain, or are they being fed grain that is GMO free? That's the question. So let's look closely at costs for one quick minute. Supermarkets advertise sales of chickens at $1.99. So for the cost of $1.99 for a dozen eggs, you can buy cheap eggs run by large corporations who have inferior nutrients. They're laden with GMOs and antibiotics. Mermaid Farm and Gray Barn sell their eggs for $7 a dozen. Allen Farm sells theirs for $8 a dozen. These are all eggs that are laid by chickens that are outside running around, well, until the snow melts, and they're living off of organic feed. Our family raises chickens, and we sell our eggs for $8 a dozen to friends and neighbors, and we do not feel we make any money on them. My husband, who manages and feeds and cares for our chickens, wonders if we even break even on this. But I say there's a huge profit in having fresh eggs that are GMO-free. Besides the 12 grams of protein, both white and brown eggs have very similar nutrient components. Both are rich in vitamin B, vitamins, minerals, such as phosphate and choline. And if I were to compare eggs to a protein bar, most protein bars cost $2.99. Most protein bars are 300 calories, 5 grams of fat, 170 milligrams of salt, and 9 grams of sugar. Unless they are organic, they're laden with GMOs. Your egg is a far better value than a protein bar. You see, eggs are one of the most nutrient-dense, antioxidant-rich, vitamin-laden foods on the planet. So I wonder why we would ever sell them so cheaply. Even at 75 cents an egg, they seem like a huge deal to me. So we know for a fact that chickens foraging on grass and insects produce eggs that are coveted as being more nutritious and more flavorful. When it comes down to it, it's always best to go local. You can be part of the solution by obtaining your eggs from local farmers who raise chickens on GMO-free grain. And if they don't, then ask them. Let's strike a deal with those farmers. Let's ask them how we can get their grain to be GMO-free. If you can't afford a dozen of eggs at $7 or $8 a dozen, perhaps there's something that you could do for the farmer. Perhaps you'll consider raising chickens yourself, or perhaps you'll consider sharing the load with a neighbor. The pleasure of knowing hens and their henniness is worth every penny of the investment. So check out your farmers, read your labels. I'm always charmed by the creative labels that I see by our local farmers. I look for labels that say and describe as much as it can about the way that these animals have been raised. I love this one, and I'll leave it with you. Happy, healthy chickens, allowed to express their chickenness, eating GMO-free grain and living the good life.